Hello, my name is Phil Poirier. I'm with Bonny Doon Engineering and Tools. We build hydraulic presses and all the tooling for jewelers and metalsmiths. Today I'm going to show you about the 6-inch deep draw kit. The 6-inch deep draw kit will allow you to form vessels in much the same way that you would hand raise them. We call it the 6-inch deep draw kit because it's designed around a 6-inch disc of metal. This can be copper, in this case it's red brass, sterling silver, pewter, fine silver, 18 karat gold, 14 karat gold. We've done this even in platinum. So again, here we have a 6-inch disc of metal. It's 18 gauge thick, 1 millimeter thick. I'll first go over all the tools and describe them to you with the idea that you get somewhat of a orientation to what's here. We've got 4 punches and 4 dies. Largest punch here, this is 3.5 inches, a 3-inch, a 2.5, and a 2-inch. So our vessel sizes are the same. A 3.5-inch vessel, a 3-inch vessel, 2.5, and 2-inch vessel. The corresponding dies are right here laid out in front of them. You see the 3, the 2.5, and the 2. And to do the first draw, we use this large 3.5-inch punch with what is called the master die set. The master die set comprises 2 pieces of die material. This is all hardened steel, hardened tool steel, I should say. In this case, we have 2 parts, and we'll go through the actual setup of this, how you clamp your metal in there, and drawing of the initial vessel. So that's the master die set. And then we also have a standoff. So we're going to use this in the press so the vessel has somewhere to go after it's been drawn. Here we have the extraction kit. So the extraction kit consists of a 7-inch tall piece of stainless tubing, along with several different rings of different sizes that will help extract the vessel off of the punch. And this is the screw jack that we use to do just that. This again, we'll go through the process and you'll see me use this to extract the vessel off the punch. The kit also comes with the full set of instructions, which gives you the process, the underlying process. So if you can understand the process of deep draw, it will make such good sense to you once you actually perform the deed here with the deep draw kit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is set up the process of drawing a 6-inch disc. We're isolating this just to the 6-inch master die set. I'll pull the bolts that hold the 2 halves together, separate the 2 halves, and you'll notice one half has somewhat of a corner on the edge. The other half has a very specific radius over this edge here. The one with the radius is the one we're going to have on the bottom. Here's my 6-inch disc of whatever metal. I'm going to lubricate it with an animal fat, basically. So we could use lard. You can use, in this case, this is liquid lanolin, tallow, anything that would be an animal-based fat. They tend to be the best lubricants and the non-petroleum lubricants for deep drawing. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this around here. Spread it around with my fingers. I'm going to put that side down on the die, like so. We'll add a little bit more on the top. I'm going to just for now eyeball center. So I'm just going to eyeball this in the middle of the bolt holes. And then I'm going to place the top die on top, align the screw holes visually, like so. I can start the screws in the holes here. like so. Now I need to retrieve 2 steel rulers, and with those rulers I'm going to insert them through the gaps here and center this plate. Now here we've got the 2 steel rulers, and I'm going to insert them through the little gap here in the sides, and I'm going to measure. In this case I'll measure in millimeters on both sides, and we'll look at 28 millimeters there, and I see 25 here, so I'm going to just use these to slide the disc over. So I'm reading 27, and that's about 27 there. So we're good centered on this axis. I want to make sure I'm centered on this axis. So again, I'll stick the rulers in, and here I'm down to 25, and here it's more like 28. I'll slide it that way just a bit, and there's 27, and that looks to be 27. Double check, make sure it didn't slide out of position. That looks good. Very good. I'm convinced now that the center, or the disc is in the center of the die set. Put those aside. As I go to tighten these screws, I want to make sure I'm tightening very evenly. If I tighten a little bit too much on one side and then go opposite it and tighten too much, then I'm going to actually be pinching the metal. So I don't want to use any leverage against this. So I like to go what I call opposite and opposed. So I'm going to tighten these just finger tight, tighten these, and tighten those two finger tight. Now it comes time to torque it. It's going to be a light torque, just a firm torque. And again, I'll start with 1 and just feel good firm action. Go opposite it like you were tightening the bolts of a car tire. And I'll firm that up in a star pattern. Come over to this one. And again, there's number 4. Give it the same tightness. Go opposite over here, number 5 and number 6. And I like to do that one more time. So here we go, just to make sure they're all the same firmness. Good. Now we're ready to put this in the press. To do so, we're going to need a Mark III press, and that's going to be over here where I'm going to take the riser block out of the press. This gives me much more room to do my work. I'm going to place our first spacer here. This way you'll have the ability to actually see the vessel come through. Typically you won't have a piece of pipe here that will be solid. This I've actually cut open so you can see and follow with the vessel coming through. And I'll take the die set, complete with the, in this case, red brass. And I'm going to place it on the standoff, like so. And this is our punch we're going to use. I'm going to pull out the extractor pin. And actually, I'm going to have to lift this out first and put that in, like so. Make sure everything's centered, and you can do so by watching the gap on either side of the die set. Look at all angles, make sure that the lower standoff is in the center. So I'm coming around here and making sure everything is in the center. And that looks about right. Now we're ready to press. There'll be one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put a little paper towel right down in the bottom here. And that's going to help when the vessel comes all the way through. It will keep the vessel from damaging itself on the steel platen. Okay, so that's a little nest there. And now we're ready to go. You will start to see the vessel come through right down in here. right down here. And it's about to drop through. There we go. There's our deep drawn vessel. So here we have a vessel that's 3.5 inches in diameter, 18 gauge still. It's 18 gauge throughout. The whole process of deep draw allows us to keep the same thickness, the same wall thickness. Let me wipe the lanolin off. Oops. You can actually see how this is going to come right off. And there's our vessel. So we're almost 2 inches, maybe 1.75 inches tall, and 3.5 inches in diameter. It's still 18 gauge. So the wall thickness we started with, 18 gauge, is still here as an 18 gauge vessel. We have not thinned it. There's been no heat involved. Some of the things you can see and notice is the rim, because it was a commercially cut disc, is very nice and smooth all the way around. And again, the same thickness. If we look on the side here, there's some interesting telltale marks. First off, you see these little marks here, the little burnish marks. From that we can tell that the metal, as it was gathering together radially around the circle, it was pushing itself into the wall. So here's where you might refer to this as a burnishing, kind of like rubbing your arm against a newly painted surface, and where it had the most force is actually bright. Around the rim here we see a very clear and distinct burnishing going on, very bright. That's where the metal was actually starting to thicken. From 18 gauge it was thickening to maybe 16 gauge almost thickness. But because the die restrains the thickness, it's then ironed out to 18 gauge. So hence we've retained the original thickness. See the nice radius? By having a nice radius here, it sets us up for further redraws to make this smaller in diameter and taller in height. I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something from it. If you have any questions or want to see more, check out riogrande.com or call them at 1-800-545-6566.